right in the middle of 136a, Kuf Lamed Vav Amud Aleph. About 15 lines from the bottom, maybe 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 12 lines from the bottom. The last three words are Bo Mine Rava. So we had a machlokas in our Mishnah when the father is giving over his assets to his children, his property to his children, and he writes it in the formulation of Umehayom Ula'achar Misa. So do you have to write from today and after I die? So meaning he's giving over the land. He's giving over the land today, and the son will only get the benefit from it, as we say, that he gets the peiros, the fruits of the land, after the father dies. And the discussion in the Mishnah was, do you have to write Mehayom? The first opinion said you do. Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yossi said a novelty that since the document has a date on it, so we know that he's selling it from today. So even if you don't write from today, it's still going to be a valid sale. So now we're asking a new question. Bo Mine Rava me Rav Nachman. Rava asked Rav Nachman, Behakna Mahu. So in a shtar called a shtar hakna, where it's recording what just happened. So in the case of the Mishnah, you were giving over the property with a document. It was called a shtar matana, a document of a gift. You're gifting the son through the means of a document. Here, you're just recording it. You're recording what happened. On this and this day, property was transferred over from Reuben to Shimon. So, do you have to write Mehayom also or not? So, for example, yeah. So let's see. So you have a document that once again is just saying, it says there that there was a transaction that was done between two people. In our case, maybe the father and the son. Not that you're using the document as a means of transferring property. I never smell grapefruit this early in the morning. So, but not that you're giving over the property through the means of the shtar, but rather you're recording that there was a transaction done in the document. Does that change anything or not? So that was the question posed from Rava to Rav Nachman. So Amar Le, Rav Nachman said back to Rava, Behakna Eino Tzarech. When it comes to a shtar hakna, when you're just recording things that were done, so then you don't need to write down Mehayom. Okay. So, okay. Amar Le Behakna Eino Tzarech. Rav Papi Amar like this: Ika aknisa de tzarich, ve'ika aknisa de lo tzarich. Sometimes in a document where there is a transaction recorded, you do have to, and sometimes you don't have to. So it depends. Let's see. Akniya v'kinyana minei lo tzarich. Kinyana minei v'akne tzarich. So now you're going to have different parts of the document. So in the beginning of the document, you can write one of two things. Either you're going to write, I will transfer this over to you. And then at the bottom of the document, it says, and it was transferred over to you. We acquired it from him. So you have a document which is just recording what happened. So in the beginning of the document, it says, I will transfer over to you, this and this estate, this is this address. And at the bottom, it says, and we acquired from him. It confirms it. So then you don't need to write that the acquisition took place today, because then you have a date on the document. It says it was acquired. So there you don't need to write today. But if you flip it and you wrote Kanina Mine, at the top of the document you wrote, and we will acquire, and it was acquired from him. But then at the end, it's written, and I will transfer it to him. So there, we don't know if the transaction really took place yet, because at the end of the document, it says, I will transfer it over to him. It sounds like you're just confirming what you want to do. but we're not sure if you did it yet. So in that case, you would have to write a date. Now, how would writing a date help anything? One second. One second. Sorry. Let's say. Okay. Yeah, doesn't say. But it would seem like when you wrote at the end of the document, I will transfer it to him. You're showing your future plans. In that case, to have this be a valid document, you would have to date it. You would have to date it. I guess the date adds more validity to it.
I think that's because it's a little ambiguous. Maybe.
It's ambiguous, so this helps it. Okay. Yeah. Oh, here. Yeah. Okay. Fine. And we'll come back to this later. So fine. So that's that opinion. Maskif Rav Chanina Misura. Chanina from the town of Sura asked the question. Mi ika midi the analo yadinon the safri yadi. So he's saying you just told me a distinction between how I'm going to phrase the document. Either I write we acquired it from him in the beginning of the document, or you write that at the end of the document. But he said, how could it be that the sofrim, the scribes, would always write the documents, and we're more learned than them, presumably. So how could it be that we're not sure about this? Meaning, and yet the sofrim that are always writing the documents, they know. Meaning they know when to write mehayom. It's such a detailed thing, and they're always writing documents. So this that we just explained that in this case you have to write mahayom, and in the other case you don't need to write mahayom. The sofrim are always writing documents. Are you sure that they know this? That they know this halacha? I mean, so Mika midi the ana lo yadinon v'safri yadi. So sha'alinhu l'sifri debai. They asked the scribes of Abaye, the yadi, yeah, they knew this halacha that you write mahayom when it's written like this, and you don't write mahayom. You don't have to write mahayom when it's not written like that. Well, the safri de Rava v'yadi, and they also knew. So the answer is yeah. The scribes were, even though they were just scribes, but they were very well versed in the laws, and therefore they it wasn't a question anymore. Even the scribes knew this distinction. Okay. Rav Huna Breder of Yeshua. Rav Huna, son of Rav Yeshua, said, Amar, Bain akne v'kanina mine. Whether you wrote in the beginning of the document, I will acquire, I will transfer the ownership. And at the end, you wrote the kanina mine, the witness is there. So it's a document where, let's say, Reuben wants to sell to Shimon, our case, and the two witnesses are going to help this transaction go through. So they are going to help Reuben transfer the property to Shimon. So they're writing up this document that Reuben wanted to sell property to Shimon, and at the end it says we acquired it from him. The witnesses, acquired the property from Reuben and sold it to Shimon, through the means of one of the transactions. Okay. So whether you wrote akne v'kanina minei, ben kanina minei v'akne, however you put the order, either I've acquired from him in the beginning or you put it at the end, lo tzarech. In both cases, you don't need to write mehayom. I guess it's not that ambiguous, and we're good to go. However, ubeduchron piskame dehabe be'anpana pligi. That's where they argue if you have to put in mehayom. So what's this document called ubeduchron piskame dehabe be'anpana? So literally, I think ubeduchron means in this place. It was written down in this place in front of us, meaning it's a document that is just recording testimony. It's a called shtar edus. So it's saying in this place, this and this happened. So it's you're just recalling information. you're not transferring anything over. So in that case, you're not even writing over that Reuben gave over to Shimon. You're just saying that things were transferred over, at this address on this day between these people. Not that Reuben transferred money to Shimon. No, it's just like a diary, just recording there was property transferred over from these two people on this and this day. So in that case, that's where they argue if you have to write mehayom or not. But in the shtar that's actually recording a transaction, Reuben gave over to Shimon. There you don't need to write mehayom. I guess it's more self-evident. But in just a diary, just you're recording things. So then the details matter much more. There's less context. It's less self-evident.
Seems like it would be much simpler if they just said, write Yom
Right.
all the time.
All the time.
And not worry about it.
Right. I guess the question is if they didn't.
Yeah.
Right. Lechatchila, originally you should, but if they didn't, right? Jules could be a scribe assistant, advisor to the scribes.
As
So
long as they don't expect me to physically write it.
that's right. AI will do that for you. So okay. So please, okay. Amar of Kahana. Amrisa l'shmaita kameder of Zvid. So I said this over to Rav Zvid, Minaharda from Naharda. But Amar Li, he told me, Asu nahachi masnisula. That's how you said over the story. You said it over that's where they argue, that's where they don't argue. But Anan, us in Naharda, we said over the halacha in the following way. Anan hachi masnisula. Amar Rav Nachman, behakna eino tzarech. When you have a shtar that you're actually using as a means of transaction, eino tzarech. You don't need to write mehayom. Bein akne v'kane minei, bein kane minei v'akne. Whether you put I will acquire from you in the beginning or you put it in the end, lo tzarech. However, beduchron pisgami d'have be'anpana pligi. When it's a document which is just recording the events like a diary, so that's where they do argue. So he said over like this, but so originally it was said over as a question. Where do they argue? Yeah, Rava asked Rav Nachman. However, where we are in Naharda, it wasn't posed as a question. It was a statement. Rava wasn't wondering. He said in the name of Rava said in the name of Rav Nachman, this is the halacha. You guys had it as a question. We had it as a obvious fact. No questions needed. Okay. Next part. So now, the last part of our Mishnah said the following, right? Just go back to the Mishnah for a second. The father's writing over the property he wants to give over to his son. So the Mishnah said, "Hakosav nechasav lebeno la'achar moso." So now, the father wants to give the property over to the son, but the son can only use the property. It's like a two-stage transaction. He can only use it after the father dies. The Mishnah said neither one can sell it. The father can't sell it because it's ran over to the son. And the son can't sell it because it's still in the property of the father. That was the first part of the Mishnah. So now, says the Gemara, Hakosim nechatzal v'no la'achar mosa. So Itmar. The Amoraim had a discussion about this. Let's say the son did sell it. Machar haben b'chaye ha'av. The son did sell it. Maybe he shouldn't, maybe he should. I don't know, but he sold it. So he sold it while the father was alive, and then the son died in the life of his father. So just going back for 1 second, the last part of the Mishnah said that if the son sells it, the buyer gets nothing until the father dies. Why? Because the son's going to get the full property only after the father dies. As long as the father's still alive, the son only has like the title. It's under his name, but he doesn't have the usage of it. So therefore, once the father dies, then the buyer will be able to acquire it. In this case, though, the son died first. So the father gave over the title to the son, but not the usage to the son. The usage is only going to take into effect after the son died. And now what happened? The son died in the life of the father. Does anything happen? Does nothing happen? Let's see. Turning the page. So, Rabbi Yochanan lo kana lokeach. The lokeach, the buyer, did not acquire it. The Reish Lakish Amar kana lokeach. And Reish Lakish argues and says that the buyer did acquire it. Now we're going to touch on in 3 separate cases. I was wondering why this is a fire department at Daf Yomi, then I realized. So there we go, and I got a smile. So now this is going to have 3 cases, and it's going to touch on a topic that comes up a lot of places, and it's interesting to try to think about what exactly does each opinion hold. But basically, there's the following more famous discussion: if you own the property, you own the field, I own the usage of the field. How do you view that? On the one hand, why are you buying the field? It's only for the usage. Mm-hmm. The guy that owns a field but can't use it doesn't really own it so much. Either you could say he owns it 0, or he owns it, but it's very it's more of an abstract. It's very hard to understand. The guy that owns the usage, it's like he owns the whole field, and therefore he could sell the field. It's that strong. If you own the usage, I own a pencil, but I can't use it. So what does it mean you own the pencil? For what reason do you own the pencil? One opinion says you're right, basically for nothing. The usage is the main owner. Or you say no. You say usage is a very important part. It's a very significant part. However, at the end of the day, the person that owns the title, he has something, and you only own the usage. But you can't take that usage and then sell even the title, right? If you own the usage of your house, right? But you don't own your house, you can't just sell it. Or no, maybe that's what it means to own something, is the usage of it. Okay. So now, in this case, the son was going to get the usage of the property only after the father died. He owned the title. His name was on the property, but he didn't own the usage till after the father died. The problem was the son died first. But before he died, he sold his property over to somebody else. So Reuven gave over to Shimon, and now Shimon sold to Levi. But Shimon died. So Rabbi Yochanan says Levi does not acquire it. And Reish Lakish says Levi does acquire it. Why? Why does each one hold what they hold? Rabbi Yochanan Amar Lo Kana. Rabbi Yochanan said that Levi acquired nothing. Why? Because Kinyan Apeiros to Kinyan Aguftami. Who owned the usage the whole time the son was alive and the father was alive? The father. Father was still living in the property and using the property. So the son only owned the title. It was under his name. But he doesn't own the usage. So therefore, you sold something which is meaningless. You own the pencil, but you can't use the pencil. And then you went and you sold the pencil to somebody else. Says Rabbi Yochanan, it doesn't work that way. It's not a good sale, because the one that owns the usage, it's kekinyan haguftami. It's like he owns the whole thing. Enough that someone else can't go and sell it against his will. That's Rabbi Yochanan. Reish Lakish Amar kana lokeach. He says Levi does acquire. Why? Kinyan Peiros, an acquisition in the property, in the usage of something, is significant for sure. It's a real acquisition. You're allowed to sell the usage of your car. You can sell the usage of your house. However, it's lav kekinyan aguftami. It's not that strong that we view you as the owner of the title also. You're only the owner of the usage. And therefore, since it's lav kekinyan aguftami, it's not as strong. It's not as, you don't own as much of the property, as even the title of property. So therefore, what did the son sell? His title. That's fine. The father owns a kinyan apeiros, but it's not like owning the title. Therefore, the son had all the rights to sell the title of the property to Levi, and therefore that would still be a valid transaction. Yeah. 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 So that is the our Mishnah. This case where the son died first, we're touching upon a very big discussion between Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish. They were Karusis for many years, and they had this big argument. So fine. So that's that. Now, says the Gemara, if ligu b'chad zimna, this Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish, they didn't wake up, on Daf Kuflam and Vav and Bava Batra and had this disagreement. They woke up much earlier. The Itmar, what they say, Hamocher Sedeo Lepeiros, a classic case. I sell you a field for the usage. I sell you the usage of the field. Hamocher Sedeo, I sell you a field, Lepeiros, for the fruits. Meaning, you get the fruits of the field. You can eat off the field. The field itself is not yours. You can eat from the field. You have all right to do whatever you want to the field. Rabbi Yochanan Amar. Okay, so now what happens when it comes to bikurim? We know you have to give your first fruits. So Rabbi Yochanan says, maybe vikora. You can bring it, and you could recite the special declaration that a person recites in Parshas Kisavo, that he goes to the Kohen, and we read it by the Pesach Seder. Arami Oved Avi, right? The Aramean was my forefather. He tried to destroy us. That's all the beginning of Parshas Kisavo. This whole declaration. Now, the rule is that the Rashbam says you can only read the declaration because the Torah says when the land is considered yours. Why? The Torah says that the person is reciting. We actually had this a long time ago. Ha'adama asher nasata li Hashem, the land that Hashem gave me. You can't recite that if the land doesn't belong to you. On the other hand, you're not exempt from bringing bikurim. Why? Because it says asher tavi ma'artzecha. You should bring from your land. You should bring from your land, and even though you only own the fruits of the land, but at the end of the land is still giving sustenance to your produce, so you still have to bring the produce to the Beis Hamikdash. You have a guy who only owns the usage of a field. On the one hand, the land is giving him his sustenance, so you have to show your gratitude and bring that to the Beis Hamikdash. On the other hand, you can't say the land fully belongs to me because I only own the usage. I don't own the actual land. So what do you do in that case? So says you bring the fruits and you read the special recitation of bikurim. Why? Because he's going to hold when you own the fruits of something, it's like you own the field itself. So there's no difference between owning the field and owning the usage of the field. They have the same halakhic status. Rish Lakish Amar maybe the Eno Korah. You have to bring, because at the end of the day, the field still gave you your sustenance, and the fruits grew from the field, and to that you have to show gratitude, and the fruits belong to you. So those fruits came from a field that Hashem gave you, so you have to show gratitude for that. But you can't say the land that you gave me. At the end of the day, you didn't give me the land. Mm-hmm. Hashem gave the land to the other guy, the one that owns the title. He just did. This guy gave me the usage of the land. Yeah. So now, Rabbi Yochanan Amar maybe Vikora. Why? Because Kinyan Paris Kinyan Aguftami. Rabbi Yochanan says you have to do. It's like you own the whole field, even though you only own the usage, because a Kinyan Paris, a acquisition of the fruit of the field, is as strong as the acquisition of the whole field itself. Reish Lakish Amar maybe Veinokora. Why Kinyan Paris Lav Kinyan Aguftami? So now the Gemara is saying, what are you teaching me that this discussion over here in Bava Batra is a discussion between Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish? Obviously, anytime you have a case like this, it's a machlokes, Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish. It sounds like there's like some novelty over here. You should know that this is a machlokes, Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish. Says the Gemara, maybe you would have thought that they're going to have different opinions. In our case, they would have held differently. To that we teach you, no. That machlokes by bikurim, of when you own the fruits of the field, is actually the same discussion as over here. So now, why would you have thought it's going to be different? So let's see. Amar lach Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan said the following. Afal gav de ba'alma, even though in general I hold, kinyan peiros is kinyan aguftami, that when you own the usage of something, it's as valid halachically as you own the thing itself, the field itself. But hacha, it's here I had to teach you that I still hold that to be true, even by the case where the son sold, the father wrote the property over to the son. The son can't use it till the father dies. The son then went and sold it to Levi, and then the son died before the father. Why would you have thought differently? Hacha itzrich. Why? Saka daitach, meaning you would have thought up in your head. Literally, saka is to go up. Daitach is you would have thought. And then you would have said the following: Abba legabe brei achule achil. A father is so close to his son that it could be he just forgoes everything to the son. Meaning, since he forgoes everything, so therefore what? So therefore, therefore the whole field would be the son's. Exactly. If the whole field would be the son, and then the sale would be a valid sale. Kamash Malan, we teach you, since the father still owns the usage of the field, therefore and his son does not own the usage of the field. Therefore, when the son goes and sells the field to Levi, it's not going to be a good sale. But maybe you would have thought he forgoes everything to the son, and therefore the son would have the ability to sell that field fully. Kamash Malan. That we don't say that. So even though in general you'd have thought Kinyan Paris is Kinyan Aguf, in this case you'd have thought that the Kinyan Paris, the usage of the father, is not as strong as the field, as owning the field itself, since he would forego it towards his son. What about Reish Lakish? This part's look a little more confusing. Rav Shimon ben Lakish, who generally holds that owning the usage of the field is not as strong as owning the field itself. And that's why when the son does sell the field, the fact that the father owns the usage of the field still does not prevent the sale from taking effect. You would have thought that maybe it should prevent the sale. Why? Rav Shimon ben Lakish Amar Afagav, the Be'alma in general, Kinyan Paris, the owning, the usage is Lafka Kinyan Aguf, is not as strong as owning the field itself. Hacha, you would have thought differently. Why would you have thought differently? Itzrich, Sakadai Techamina, Kol Legabe Nafshe, anything that has to do with one's own property, Afilu B'makom Brei, even in the place of his son, Adifale. Even though in general, Kinyan Paris is not like a Kinyan Aguf. However, in this case, since you still want the property, the usage of the field for yourself, you want it for yourself. So in this case, you're giving something over to the son. But even when you're giving it to the son, everyone knows, you come first still. You come first. So when you're talking about a land that someone else gave you and you want to know what's your status, okay, that's one discussion. When you're giving it over to somebody, so maybe you would have thought that you're not going to give over that Kinyan Payer so fast to the son. Really, in that case, we're going to view you as your usage is really as strong as the field because you really want the field and everything that it comes with. You want to give over the smallest amount. Kamash Malan, that no, even in the case when you're dealing with transactions, that when you write it over to the son, you give him the usage, and for yourself, it's not going to be you give over the title, you retain the usage for yourself, but it's not going to be as strong as the title. You would have thought maybe it should be as strong as the title itself because you want to, when you're selling your own property, you want to keep as much as you can for yourself. Kamash, and that no, it's just like someone gives you the usage of a land. At the end of the day, you own the usage, but you're still happily giving over the title to the son, and your ownership of the usage will not be as strong as the title itself, and therefore the son's sale will go through.
So who will do the Bikurim plus the giving plus the blessing?
Right. So in this case, the person would bring up the fruit, and he wouldn't declare anything. And there's no one to declare. It sounds like
he's got the usage, but he doesn't have
he has the usage, but at least according to Reish Lakish, he can't utter the words, the land that Hashem gave me. Because the land is not mine, the usage is mine. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like a tenant.
Yeah. Brown.
Like a tenant. Right. Yes, the Gemara.
They both agree on.
A tenant, right? It's called schirus. There, it's also the Gemara Pesachim talks about when you're a renter, you're a tenant, right? So now who's checking for chametz? You say it's not my house. It's not my house. So how do you do that? That's in the beginning of Pesachim. Yeah, the status of a renter is also interesting. It's similar to this in a certain way. Yeah, it might be there. Everyone's going to agree. I think that's also machlokas. Schirus kanya or lo kanya. That'll be interesting how that machlokas plays into this machlokas of Kinyan and Paris. Interesting. Okay, so now, once that's all 100% clear, so now, okay, we gotta get going. Oh my, Esvei. Yeah, Esvei Rabbi Yochanan Reish Lakish. Rabbi Yochanan says, Reish Lakish, I have a question on you. This is not gonna make things any easier. Okay, Okay, so we had this case earlier. A guy writes, I want my property to go after I die to person A, and after person A dies to person B, and after person B dies to person C. Now, at the end of the day, it's all going to go to person C, right? So how do you view what person A and person B have? How do you view that? They really only own the usage. At the end of the day, they don't decide where it goes. So since they don't decide where it goes, it's like owning the usage of the field, right? And therefore, that's one way to understand it. On that assumption, we have a question. What's the question? So now I want to give my property over to him, and after him to him, after him to him. And now what happens? Mace Rishon, the first guy, person A, Reuven, that was granted property from the guy that's dying. So Yaakov is giving over property to Reuven. So Mace Rishon, what happens? Kana Sheni. After the first guy dies, the second guy acquires it. Mace Sheni Kana Shlishi. So you see that the actual ownership is not up to the people; it's up to the person who passed away. However, what happens in the following case? Mace Sheni b'chayi rishon. Guy number 2 dies in the lifetime of guy number 1. So that means that it's supposed to go to guy number 2 after guy number 1 dies. The problem is, though, guy number 2 died first. So now what happens? Says the Gemara, Yachsu nechasim liyorshe rishon. The property is going to revert back to the descendants, the heirs of the first guy. We break up this whole exciting system over here. It was all predicated if everything worked in order. But sometimes life doesn't go that way. So, and therefore, the first person owned it, so it's going to go to him and going to go to his descendants. Now, this is Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan who holds that the usage of something is as strong as owning the title itself. The Im Isa, and if you Reish Lakish are right, that a kinyan of Paris that is not as strong as a kinyan of Guf, so why does it go to the descendants of the first person? The first person never could sell it to anybody. It always is going to go to the second person. So it was always going to go to the second person.
It's not Shabbos.
So really, the first person only owned a kinyan of Paris. Just don't drink it. So if the first person only owned a kinyan of Paris, right? Because it was supposed to go from dead person to person A. When person A dies, it goes to person B. So person A never really owned it. He only owned the kinyan of Paris. And if he only owned the kinyan of Paris, when guy 2 died first, so then why does guy 1's inheritors get to keep everything? If you're right, Reish Lakish, that kinyan of Paris is not kinyan of Guf, so why did it go to this guy's descendants? He only owned the usage, and by you, the usage is not as significant as the thing itself. It should go to the heirs of the original deceased person who owns the property. According to Rabbi Yochanan, it's beautiful, no problem at all. Owning the usage is like owning the thing itself. So when the first person owned it, even though he couldn't sell it to anybody else, but it's still as strong as owning the field itself. So that's Rabbi Yochanan's question on Reish Lakish. V'im isa liyorshe, no sein mi b'hilei. Why does it go? It should go to the isa. One second. Why does it go to the Yorshin? It should say no sein mi b'hilei. One second. How do they translate? Right. Why does it go back to the first person? It should go. Right. It should go back to the original giver and their inheritors. Right. That's what it means. It should go back to the original giver. Okay. Amrlei says Reish Lakish. There's one detail over here which is an exception to my rule. Amrlei kvar tigmar Rav Hoshia the Bava. Rav Hoshia from Bavel already said the following: Acharecha shiny. When something is given over and the words acharecha, after you, are in the transaction, that's different. Even me, Reish Lakish, is going to agree that a kinyan of Paris is a kinyan of Guf. Why? Because when you want this person to get it, and then after you, I want you to get it, what the implication is, according to this understanding, is I want you to get it, I want you to get everything. After you get everything, I want you to give everything to somebody else. So even though this person can't sell it to anybody he wants, it has to go to the second guy. But for his lifetime, he owns the whole thing. He owns everything. The words acharecha have an implication that I'm giving you, and everything I'm giving you, I want you to give to the other person. So even Reish Lakish that holds a kinyan and pair says lach a kinyan and guftami. When it's acharecha, shiny. Acharecha is different. When it comes to acharecha, even I'm going to agree, kinyan and pairs is a kinyan and guf, and therefore it's not a question on me. Okay, v'chein Rami Rabba Bar Rav Huna kamei derav. Rabbi Rav Huna asked a contradiction on this idea that acharecha changes everything. The Amar acharecha shayna. You tell me acharecha is different. It has a certain implication that I'm giving you everything, and I want you to give everything to the next person. But for your lifetime, it totally belongs to you. So now I'm going to ask you a question on this. What's the question? The question is the following: the Hatanya Yachsru Liyorshe. It says Hatanya Yachsru Liyorshe. We have a brisa. Sorry, the Cheinami Bar Rav Huna Kamei Derav, the Amar Acharecha Shiny, and he asked him a question. He answered him, Acharecha is different. And now we asked from a brisa, Yachsru Liyorshe. It actually goes to the descendants of the first person. So our case of person A, person B, person C. Here we're asking, I think, it's a reverse question. It says that look, it goes to the inheritors of the first person, but it should go to the nosin. It should go to the original. It should go to the original giver. So, and there we answered acharecha shiny. One second. One second. This is a question now on Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan holds kinyan of Paris is like a kinyan of guf. Sorry. A kinyan of Paris is like a kinyan of guf. So therefore, when right, why in this case the property? I think, correct me if I'm wrong. The property, it says here, goes back to the original giver. And we're asking, it should not go back to the original giver. It should go back to person A's heirs, right? So meaning it's the Bryce taught the opposite way. Our first Bryce taught that it goes back to the original heirs of the first person. And there we asked, why not to the original giver? This Bryce teaches it in the inverse, I believe, right? Is that what it says?
At the very end, it's to
the original giver. Right. And we're asking, according to you, Rabbi Yochanan, why are you giving to the original giver?
Yeah.
If guy 2 died before guy 1, but guy 1 had a kinyan of Paris in it, therefore it's like owning the title itself. It should go to the heirs of the first person. So this brisa had the opposite halacha being taught. So just like the first brisa was a question on Reish Lakish, in this brisa, which teaches the opposite case, is a question on Rabbi Yochanan. Says the Gemara, you're right, Tanaihi. Tanaihi, it's actually a machlokes. If kinyan of Paris is kinyan of guftami, it actually finds its roots already in the Tanaim. Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish were later Rebbeim, they were Amoraim. They came after the Tanaic period. But actually, it's actually 2 brises disagree about this. What are those 2 brises? The Tanya, Nechaselach ve'acharecha leploni v'yared l'ri. Oh, so now Nechaselach ve'acharecha leploni. You're giving over property to person A. After person A dies, it goes to person B. Now, person A went v'yared rishon u'machar. He sold all the property. He took all the property. I'm giving you all the property, and after you die, I want it to go to him. But person A went in his lifetime, took the property, and sold all the property. And then he consumed all the money. That part of the response is not so relevant what he did with the money. The point is, he was able to sell all the property. So now, Hasheni comes a second guy and says, hello, first guy died. This belongs to me now. Halacha is, Hasheni motzi ma'al lakuchos, divrei Rebbe. Rebbe says, you're right. Second guy can go to the buyers of the field of the first guy. Mm-hmm. The guy sold it and died. And he says, it belongs to me. Because that guy, he had no right to actually do that. Rabbi Shimon Gamliel Omer, Ein l'sheni elamasha shayir rishon. The first guy had full rights. He had full rights to sell it. And therefore, the second guy will only get what was left over from the first guy. So machlokas Rebbe and Rabbi Shimon Gamliel seems to be very similar to our machlokas. Rebbe holds he had full rights to sell. He didn't have full rights to sell it, and Rabbi Shimon Gamliel said he had full rights to sell it. Okay, on this brisa now, V'Raminhi, we're going to ask a question. Yori Rishon u'mocher ve'ochel divrei Rebbe. Sounds like the same thing. The first guy goes, sells everything, and then consumes all the money. That's the opinion of Rebbe. Rabbi Shimon Gamliel Omer, ein l'rishon ela achilas peiros bilvad. Rabbi Shimon Gamliel switches from his previous statement. It sounds like the first time he said the second guy only gets what the first guy left over. Now he's saying ein l'rishon ela achilas peiros bilvad. The first guy only owned the peiros. So therefore, the second guy is going to come and take back the land. So says the Gemara, these two brises, each one is a question. Kasha the Rebbe or Rebbe, the Rebbe Shimon ben Gamliel. Rebbe sounds like in the second brisa, everything's a good sale. Second guy can't do anything. First brisa, he said second guy can go and get what's rightfully his and take it back. Rebbe Shimon Gamliel said in the first brisa, it's a totally good sale. Too bad for the second guy. Second brisa implies, no, the first guy only owned the usage of it. Sounds like the second guy can go and get back his land. Says the Gemara, okay, but then each person is contradicting themselves. So we say, no. The Rebbe lo kasha. Ha legufa, ha lepeira. Rebbe is not a question. In the first brisa, he owned, one second. The first brisa, he actually owned, where we say that the second guy can come and take back the property from the first guy's buyers. That's when the first guy sold the actual title, the actual land itself. And therefore he says, listen, the first guy can't do that. He only owned the usage. He never owned the property itself. This brisa that said the first guy went and sold, what did he sell? He just sold the usage. So the first brisa said he sold the actual property. That Rebbe said, okay, so guy number 2 is going to come and take it back. The second brisa says he sold it. Sounds like it's a totally good sale. That's just because he sold the fruits. Now, this is going to be very important for, I guess, looking at tomorrow. Rabbi Shimon, because we're gonna pass like Rabbi Shimon Gamliel. But the Rabbi Shimon Gamliel, the Rabbi Shimon lo kasha ha lechatchila ha di avad. Rabbi Shimon Gamliel doesn't say the first guy should have gone and sold everything and left the second guy with nothing. If you ask the rabbi, don't do it. You're a bad person. We're going to see you're going to call the Russia if you do this. However, if he did it, if he didn't ask the rabbi or he didn't listen to the rabbi, then it's going to be a good sale. Let's just keep going for a little bit. Amar Abaye, Ezu Russia Arum. What's like a really cunning Russia? It's this one who gives advice to someone that when the guy who's dying says property goes to person A, person B, person C, and you go tell person A, listen, sell all the property. Give guy 2 nothing. So he's called a Russia because he gets nothing out of it. Rashbam says you're just giving advice to someone else, just so someone else should lose out. That's a Russia. And he's a smart Russia because it works. So if you're going to be a Russia, be a smart Russia. Yeah. Ezu Russia Arum Zeha Mesi Eitza Limkor Lechatchila. Don't be a Russia, but if you're going to be one, no. So Ezu Russia Arum Zeha Mesi Eitza Limkor Benechasim Rabbi Shimon Gamliel. Someone who advises someone to sell the property, like Rabbi Shimon Gamliel, because you shouldn't do it. So bad person. But if you did it, it works. That makes you a smart Russia. Rabbi Yochanan halacha Rabbi Shimon Gamliel. Okay.
Oh, all right. It was all right for a while.
It's getting a little hard.